So here's our model of the human brain. We've got the left hemisphere of the brain here, and we've got it sagittally sectioned so we can see some of the interior structures. This layer on the outside that's all curvy, this is the cerebral cortex. It's divided into lobes. The frontal lobe is in the front. The next up is the parietal lobe here on the side. The occipital lobe is back here in the back. And then here, the temporal lobe is on the side, just under this section here called the lateral sulcus. This groove here is called the central sulcus and separates the frontal lobe from the parietal lobe. When we look inside, we see that the cerebral cortex is made out of gray matter, and it surrounds the cerebral medulla, which is made out of white matter. We can also see that the cerebral cortex doesn't just come around the surface, but it also goes down into this longitudinal fissure that separates the two halves of the brain, or the two hemispheres of the brain. Now, when we look at the medial side of the brain, this structure here, all of this is called the diencephalon. The diencephalon is made up of three different structures. We have the thalamus here. This little dot in the middle is called the interthalamic adhesion. That's where the two sides of the thalamus are linked together. Also part of the diencephalon back here is the pineal gland that releases melatonin and controls your circadian rhythms. And then this structure here is sort of triangular. That's your hypothalamus, and that's going to have a big role in controlling hormones. It's going to send signals to the pituitary gland that hangs down here. That's going to release the hormones to your body. This big white thing up here, that is the corpus callosum, and that is a huge area of connection between the left and right hemispheres of the brain. Back here we have the cerebellum. You can see that it does have folds in its surface, but they look very different from the folds of the cerebral cortex. These folds, since they line up very nicely with each other, they're called folia. That actually means pages, as though they're pages of a book. In cross-section, we see it again has gray matter on the outside and white matter on the inside. The white matter has a very different structure in the cerebellum than it does in the cerebrum. And since it sort of looks like a tree, it's actually called the arbor vitae, which means tree of life. And then this structure from here down, this is the midbrain portion here, and then this is the brain stem. The brain stem, the highest piece of it is called the pons. The next section down is called the medulla oblongata, and then this portion of the brainstem turns into the spinal cord. So the bottom of the brain stem and the top of the spinal cord come together there, and that's our brain.